livestock production is one of the most important sectors of Minnesota agriculture, ranking at or near the top nationally for turkey, swine, and beef production. With animal production, along comes manure, and that's where your job becomes very important. Applied correctly, it provides a huge boost to crop yield. Applied incorrectly, it harms the environment. You need to know there's a fine line between those two and how to stay on the right side of that line. Some people think of manure as just animal waste, but we know it's so much more than a waste product. Manure is a highly valuable soil amendment, which means it's something added to improve quality. It provides the soil and crops with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, chemical elements known as N, P, and K. Manure also adds organic matter that provides secondary nutrients and micronutrients that improve soil health as well. Improving soil health means the soil can better absorb water and nutrients, making them more available to the crops. The crop roots can grow through the soil more easily, and more beneficial microorganisms will live in the soil. The benefits of adding manure to the soil extend for many years into the future. So the proper spreading of manure is part of a long-term investment into the health and profits of a field. Manure is a valuable resource if used correctly as a soil amendment, but it can pollute the environment if mismanaged. The upside of manure is the nutrient content, including nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, or NPK. The amount of each nutrient depends on the source of the manure, that is, the type of livestock and their growth stage at the time the manure is produced. On the downside, we have the risk of losing some of the manure and its nutrients to the environment, such as manure runoff or when nitrogen ammonia evaporates as vapor, taking valuable nitrogen into the atmosphere and away with the wind. This loss, called volatilization, means the crop will require more nitrogen fertilizer later to meet crop demand. To minimize this and other nitrogen loss like denitrification, your site manager may direct you to use a nitrification inhibitor, like Instinct or Nserve, or have you incorporate the manure into the soil as quickly as possible. The goal is to apply just enough nutrients to meet the needs of each crop. Extra nutrients added to the field will largely be a waste of time, money, and resources, and increase the risk of pollution. So, if we don't manage the application rates, we may overapply or underapply some nutrients. To help properly manage the manure, producers can create a manure management plan, also called an MMP. A manure management plan helps ensure that the amount of nutrients in the manure are well matched to the amount of nutrients needed by the crop. When a field has just the right amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium it needs, we refer to this as a field in nutrient balance. The challenge is that the ratio of nutrients in the manure may not match the ratio needed by the crop. Because of this, an MMP may call for underapplying nutrients, such as nitrogen, for example. If an MMP matches the manure content of phosphorus needed by the field, you may underapply nitrogen. This can be a good thing, but explains why a field may require a manure application in addition to some commercial fertilizer to get the right nutrient balance of both nitrogen and phosphorus. Applying nitrogen or other nutrients at a rate over the optimum level does not improve crop yield, and the overapplication can have a very negative effect on the environment. For example, nitrogen is prone to leaching. Leaching refers to what happens when nutrients and small manure particles get into water and drain down through the soil. Most nutrients and particles will not move because they are bound to the soil, but excess nutrients may be leached out below the root zone. Nitrogen, in the form of nitrate, is especially willing to hitch a ride with the water. A good manure management plan considers all these variables to optimize the manure resource and how you do your work. Some farms may not have a manure management plan. In those situations, your site manager works with the farmer or landowner to determine the best plan for each field. Years of planning, sampling, and trials all become dependent on the application you provide. Although the site manager is responsible for developing the plan, your role as an applicator is crucial because you ensure that the application is carried out as planned. In some situations, the manure application is viewed primarily as a method of disposal from the farms where it is created. Pits get full, but production of manure does not stop. Try not to let the urgency for disposal influence application rates. When a manure management plan is available, work with your site manager to follow it. Here are some examples of best practices for manure spreading. Know your equipment and check all systems to make sure they are functioning correctly. Follow a manure management plan that shows a clear outline of manure nutrient supply and field nutrient demand for that crop. Avoid runoff with best management practices by applying the right balance of inputs, nutrients, water, and labor. At the right time, apply manure when the crop will be using those nutrients, in the right amount calculated to determine the amount of manure needed, and in the right place, following the setbacks around sensitive environmental areas. The term setback refers to the distance required between the manure and an area that contains or may contain water. Incorporate manure as soon as possible or within 12 hours of application, which conserves the nitrogen in the soil. Be courteous to neighbors when applying manure. Avoid getting it onto lawns and slow down as you drive past buildings or homesteads. You and your site manager will determine the best application techniques for each season. This is because equipment operation and manure nutrient availability is affected by air and soil temperature, soil moisture, and weather conditions. Few commercial manure applications are done in winter. Manure application is considered winter if manure cannot be incorporated into the soil or whenever the soil is frozen or snow-covered. All winter applications require a 300-foot setback from all sensitive features. You'll learn more about the importance of setbacks in Module 4. Most manure applications happen in the spring or fall. Here are some important things to consider when you plan a fall application. Fall application benefits from cool soils. Applying manure in early fall or when the soil is above 50 degrees allows the soil to break down the nitrogen in the manure faster, which leaves less nitrogen for the crops the next spring. By waiting till the soil is a little cooler, below 50 degrees, there is a better chance for nitrogen to last until the spring crop needs it. Fall application has a benefit of reduced soil compaction. Colder soils, below 50 degrees, can better withstand the weight of driving equipment on them. Oftentimes, big heavy equipment used in commercial application of manure may contribute to soil compaction. Fall application has a benefit of less farm activities. Post-harvest is a busy time on a farm. Waiting until the temperature is cooler may allow for easier access to farms and fields once the crops are off and there is less activity on or around the farm. For fall application, be aware of soil type. Coarse soils allow nitrogen to leach or slip down through the field more easily. For regions in central and southeastern Minnesota with sandy soil and karst topography, meaning fractured bedrock, it is not recommended to apply nitrogen in the fall, even under 50 degrees. Instead, wait until spring. Here are some things to consider when planning a spring application. A benefit of spring application is nitrogen availability. Nitrogen is available immediately to the spring crop, with less chance for nutrient loss over the winter. For spring application, be aware of manure and nutrient runoff. Snow melt can contribute to manure runoff by surface manure applications. The dark manure over white snow absorbs more sunlight and may speed snow melt. The quick melting of the snow and frozen soils does not allow the manure to attach to soil particles and creates a high risk of manure runoff. For spring applications, be aware of increased soil compaction. There may be a higher risk of soil compaction because of soft, wet soil and more chances of rain. We learned that applicators play a crucial role by ensuring that the manure gets to the right place at the right time and in the right amount, as described in your Manure Management Plan, or MMP. Even with a well-developed plan, site managers must monitor the weather and soil conditions and may modify the plan to avoid the threat of runoff. Runoff can be caused by rainfall or spring melt after manure has been applied over frozen or snow-covered soil. This explains the reason you need to pay attention to moisture. Crops use many nutrients in manure, more than the standard NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but those nutrients are available only if the manure stays where you spread it. If the ground is so wet, the water is pooling or running, or so frozen that it is running off, the manure application will wash off the field or be spread in areas that were unintended. An important part of your role as an applicator is to monitor weather conditions as the job progresses and check in with your site manager if any changes seem likely. Talk to your site manager as field conditions change. Be sure to keep your site manager aware of changing field moisture conditions. It's up to you to speak up and communicate the current conditions to your site manager. The most immediate consequence of too much water may be that you can't get into the field at all because the soil is too soft to carry heavy loads. And driving on wet soil increases the risk of soil compaction. Your tires can cause ruts in the ground or get stuck or sink unevenly and cause your machinery to tip. Getting stuck can stop production for the entire crew. This module provided information about the importance of manure in agriculture, where it comes from, and why it's valuable for improving soil quality and crop yield. Now, you know what goes into developing manure management plans. As an applicator, your job is critical in getting that correct nutrient balance for each field, ensuring the nutrients and manure stay where intended. The next module, Module 3, will help you understand more about the government agencies that regulate manure application and why it matters.